to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm very excited about one of my return guests here, who is a badass musician, and man, he can sing a song without singing, and it's a beautiful thing. So let's welcome Parris from Aggros on the show. How are you?
Thank you. Greetings from Brooklyn.
Nice. So I have to ask right off the bat, okay? Because I've been away from New York for a while, and I was thinking, there was one point right before the pandemic, I was thinking about moving back up there, and, you know, I was going to, and my brother was telling me, he's like, oh, man, you don't want to live in Manhattan, you want to live in Brooklyn. And I was like, what? I'm like,
I know it's so counterintuitive to anybody who is a New Yorker. I mean, I didn't even step foot in Brooklyn until I was in my 20s.
Right.
And it was just across the river. There was just, why would you ever leave the cultural center of the universe to go? I mean, going to Brooklyn was kind of like going to Cleveland or something. It was just,
I know, right?
You know, it just wasn't New York anymore. But here I am. I was born in Manhattan. I was educated there. I started my band's there, and here I am, a homeowner in Brooklyn.
It's wild. He told me, yeah, it's the hip place to be. I'm like, get out of here. You know, it's like the only reason I ever went to Brooklyn was two reasons. One was to get to Long Island. and two was to go to L'Amour's. And
of course, well, that was the first time I ever went to Brooklyn, was to go to L'Amour's. I went and saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Nice. Did I tell you last time we talked my L'Amour's story having to do with Slayer?
I don't believe so.
Oh, you got to hear this. Okay, this is killer. So I was at L'Amour's for Slayer. It was winter, freezing outside. And, of course, you know, you go to a show like that, you're wearing the cutoff shirt, you know, with no sleeves and all that stuff, no jacket, you know, maybe your leather, but, you know, when you're moshing or slamming, you don't need the leather. And so I was at this Slayer show, and they did like 3 encores. So by that time, you figure the show's over, unless you're a true Slayer fan like me, and knew that until one song played, the show was not over. But I was watching like 200 people start to file out of the club. And then I heard the first note of Angel of Death. Just that one note. And I saw every one of those people flowing out the door get slammed right out the door. There was no safe place to hide anywhere for the people that like to hide safe at a show for like that. And it was just utter and complete mayhem. And then after Angel of Death, I went outside. It was freezing cold, but I wasn't cold as hell. I was sweating from head to toe and blood dripping down all the way down me. And I was like, that was the best freaking time of my life. Until about 15 minutes later when the adrenaline went down and I could feel the cold and realized I'm in Brooklyn.
Yeah. I've seen so many great shows. I saw Motorhead on the Iron Fist tour. I saw the Chili Peppers. Must have been Mother's Milk. Must have been right when Mother's Milk first came out, before they had any hits. No, actually, I think it was Freaky Styling, now that I think about it. So King Diamond for the first time.
Wow.
So many great shows. And, of course, Carnivore. I was introduced to Carnivore at CBGB's, but I went to many Carnivore shows at L'Amour. And then, of course, Typo Negative. I remember seeing Typo Negative perform Black #1 for the first time at L'Amour's. So that was a great club. I miss it.
Nice. Yeah, it was a great club. So what's going on new in your world? You got some new stuff going on, and it's pretty badass.
Thank you. I kind of was doing things out of order, and I kind of released those 2 songs, as I finished them. But since then, instead of just dropping these songs one at a time, I've concentrated on working on the last 3 songs for the record. And I'm mixing now. I've been working on a TV show called Evil. I'm a camera operator on this TV show. So I work like 13 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I get into the studio for 8 hours a week on Saturdays. So the mix has been taking quite a long time, but I'm almost done. And the other thing that takes a long time is all the songs are particularly long. City Kids is 9 minutes long, and all the other songs are in the 7-minute range. And mixing a song that long it takes a lot of meticulous attention. So I'm almost finished, and then the wait for vinyl is almost 9 months. So
I'm
still 9
ridiculous.
months from releasing the record. But I'm deeply mixing these last 3 songs, which are called Fear View Mirror, Skateboard Fight, and Fear View Mirror is another. It's kind of along the same. In the same vein as City Kids. I incorporate a lot of piano, and there's no vocals, of course. But like in your introduction joke that I can sing without singing, I hope that's true, because I really make an effort to have all the instruments have a conversation. So you still feel that sense of beginning, middle, and end, and you feel that a story is being told, even if there are no words.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, too, I mean, I loved it for sure, 100%. There was no reason for words. And I don't say that often because, there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, man, I wish I had words to it. But this isn't it. And I got to tell you, I'm just going to shoot straight. That's pretty freaking ballsy of you to put out a 9-minute or a 7-minute song in 2022. And I love it.
It wasn't my intention. Initially when you write a riff, you're just sitting with your guitar, kind of mining for gold, panning for gold. You're just, playing and playing and playing until you hear something that you like, and then you just end up playing it again and again. And that's just one attribute to the entire song, one little piece. But that's the thing that pushes you to keep going. And then you write another part that goes with it, and then you just find yourself playing those 2 parts in circles. And years can go by until you find another piece to that puzzle. And, in some cases, those pieces all come together right away, but in some cases it takes quite a long time. So when you write that initial riff, you don't really know what the story is going to be or where it's going to lead you. And I had no idea that City Kids would be a 9-minute long song. But after I did, I think I was a little nervous releasing the first song, Chaos Magic, which clocked in at around 7 minutes long. And when nobody mentioned how long it was, I felt like I had license with the second song to make it as long as it needed to be, and that one needed to be 9 minutes long. But the next 3 that are coming, one of them is actually 3 minutes and 20 seconds, which I didn't even realize it until after it was mixed. I was like, how long is this one? I said to the engineer, and he's like, oh, it's 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I was like, wow, how did we manage that? The other songs are like 7 minutes, 45 seconds. But, I just basically stop when I feel like the story is told. I don't, I'm not writing the songs for, A&R people who are like, oh, no, you have to have a single or it's going to be on the radio. I look at each song as an individual work, and it should be just exactly as long as it needs to be.
So I got to tell you, too, I noticed a posting on your Facebook, like shortly before this interview. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. It was definitely a throwback. And it's funny because I just, like yesterday, got off the phone with one of my best friends that actually is in this posting. Well, at least his picture. So the shooting of Anthrax Belly of the Beast music video. So I just thought I'd have to bring it up because it was on your Facebook just recently. And I'm like, wow, there's a throwback.
That was like an hour ago.
I know, right? So it's like, wow, that's like a throwback. And I'm seeing Dan with long hair. I'm like, yeah, even though I remember him like that he looks kind of funny because he doesn't have hair like that anymore.
It was, I had done the first Cro-Mags video as basically a school project. My dad had bought me this old 16 millimeter movie camera that he bought at a police auction, gave it to me as a gift, and I ended up taking it out on the first Cro-Mags tour supporting Age of Quarrel, and I just shot everything. And I didn't really, again, almost like the way I wrote riffs, not really knowing what the full story would be. I was just felt like I should document the tour, and I was shooting all this kind of behind the scenes, backstage, at the hotel on the tour bus type stuff. And, there had never been any music videos like that. So I didn't really make the connection. Oh, I can make a music video. And oddly enough, my brother said, what are you going to do with all this footage? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, let's make a music video out of it right now. Because he was a video editor. He had this real primitive video editing facility down in Nashville. So we actually projected the 16 millimeter film on the wall.
Wow.
And then videotaped it off the wall. And that was our film to tape transfer. And then we were able to edit it digitally. And so we edited the video together in a couple of days. And then I delivered it to the record label, and it blew up. It got on regular rotation, MTV Europe, got on Headbangers Ball here. And as a result, the guys in Anthrax saw it, and they called me up, and they basically said, hey, can you make a video for Anthrax that's exactly like that? Just follow us around and do a behind-the-scenes video. And I did. I did that video, Belly of the Beast. And I literally just got a camera and flew to Europe and followed them around for 8 days and made this video for them. And subsequent to that, it seemed like that became a fad. Everybody and their mom, including Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and everybody else at the time, ended up making one of those behind-the-scenes videos. But unfortunately, they didn't hire me to do it. But I ended up doing tons of other videos for other artists that I liked more. So that worked out. But yeah, that shot of me in Rome was, the entire crew was me and my brother and a camera. And we just literally just followed Anthrax around, and they let us shoot anything we wanted. And it was great. I owe Anthrax a great deal of gratitude, because they gave me the opportunity to flex my, filmmaking muscles.
Nice.
I was basically just a film student before that, but they gave me the opportunity to do my real first professional job. And then subsequent to that, they hired me to do the live noise concert video, which was a massive job. It was like a 8-camera live concert shoot in Irvine Meadows, California,
Nice.
$250,000 budget. They just basically said, so you did our music video. Do you think you could do a concert film? And I said, yes, I can.
Absolutely.
And then I ended up making that basically started my film career. So, I owe a lot to those guys. They were big supporters of my music and big supporters of my work as a filmmaker. I mean, we've completely lost touch now. I'm not really in contact with any of them anymore, but I'll never, the gratitude will never wane.
There you go. And I'm looking at the picture and I'm looking at the video camera, and all I can think of is, man, we have come a long way in video. And like, does it kind of blow your mind now? Like, these people that are doing TikToks and don't even have a clue what they're doing, and still make decent videos. Like, wild what you can do today and how important video is.
Well, it is amazing. I mean, if you look at that camera that you're talking about in the picture, is a 16 millimeter film camera.
Right.
And, every roll of film costs $400, and it's only 4 minutes. And so, and then when you transfer that film to video, it costs about, just about as much to transfer it to video. So for every roll you buy for 4 minutes, it costs about $800. That's just to get to the point where you can edit it. And then you have to pay, like thousands of dollars a day to go into an editing facility back then. So a music video was an astronomical sum. So the idea of playing with, visual images back then, you really had to earn it.
Yeah.
Because for someone to pay for it, they were investing a lot of money. A lot of the videos I did were $100,000 budgets. They would hand me $100,000, and a week later I would hand them a video and it had to be worth $100,000. But these days, people have the ability, they have access to cameras and editing, and you can do all this stuff at home. And it is extraordinary, the ability that you have, the easy access. And they have all these pre-made filters, so somebody can basically pick up a phone and make it look like something by putting it through some kind of filter very easily. But that's usually like 10 seconds long.
Exactly.
The one thing for me as a filmmaker that has become, such a wonderful thing is I went out and I spent about $20,000 on a camera and lenses and all the things I need, and cards and batteries and all that kind of stuff. And I made the first 2 Aggros videos with that camera, basically all by myself with like the help of my wife.
Nice.
But what it did for me was, I tell a 9-minute long story. That's a lot different than telling a 15-second story.
Yes.
You really have to, have the skills to light and present visual images for 9 minutes. And it has a lot less to do with luck than maybe taking your phone out and shooting things all day long and then sorting out 15 seconds to put through a filter and put on Instagram. It's a lot different. So I don't think the quality of work has been raised up by the accessibility. It's not like suddenly these artists are emerging that are creating these great things with film. I think it's the same number of people that used to do it, that are weeded out amongst the millions and millions of videos you see out there.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful for the technology, because if I get a whimsical idea to shoot a section of my video, I'll just go out tonight and shoot for like 5 hours, come home and edit it. And I can have stuff that is of the same quality I used to spend $100,000 on, when I was doing videos for Anthrax and Type O Negative and things of that nature. And just, one of the songs that I recorded recently, I had Chuck Lenahan from the Crumbsuckers play on.
Nice.
And he was in town. He was just passing through town. He was actually in New Jersey. And we had spoken, and he said, okay, I'll come into the city so you can shoot, part of the video, the music video of the guitar solo I played in. So he showed up in Brooklyn at like 1:00 in the morning. And I borrowed a bunch of lights, and I got the camera out, and we met on a street corner, and I shot him for 3 hours, just doing this guitar solo over and over and over and over again. And then I could see he was exhausted because he had just played a festival with Carnivore AD all day long, and then came out to meet me in the middle of the night. And then when I could see he was fading, I was like, okay, Chuck, you can go. And he got in his friend's car and drove away.
Wow.
But it was, hold on a second. I got someone calling me. I'm just going to ignore it. But it was amazing that, I have that ability to just, call up another friend I know in the film business and borrow lights and shoot this stuff in a couple hours. And, then Chuck will be part of my musical record.
Nice. And
do you know Chuck Lenahan?
I don't. I know of. I know of. I just don't know him. When you ask me if I know him, it's not like the groupies out there like, oh, yeah. So I do know of, and I have like Crumbsuckers vinyl and cassette, I think, at home. So yes, I do know, but don't know him. I never interviewed him either.
Well, for me, in the New York scene at least, the Crumbsuckers were the best band, in my opinion. Back when my former band, the Cro-Mags, were on the rise, so were the Crumbsuckers. And they were basically the only other band that had me worried, because I figure on every music scene, there was only room for one to rise and make it as a national and worldwide act. And I thought it might be the Crumbsuckers. And they made one of the greatest debut albums ever, Life of Dreams. And I was just a huge fan. And I found myself, I had these 3 songs that I was mixing, and I was starting to think about guitar solos, which I didn't have on the first 2 songs. And I thought to myself, how crazy is it that I have a friend like Chuck that I could just call?
Yeah.
And I haven't considered asking him. So I just took one of the rough mixes and I emailed it to him. And then I followed it up with a phone call, and I was like, hey, man, I just sent you a track. If you have some time, lay something down, and I gave him a timestamp of where I thought he should play. And literally 2 days later, he sent me like the most astonishing solo.
Wow.
And it was in the song. And so I sent him another track, and I said, hey, if you got time. He's like, well, I'm out on the road for a couple of weeks, but when I get back, I'll do it. And 2 days after he got back, he sent me another solo, and it was equally astonishing. So I sent him another one. And so he's playing on the next 3 songs. Nice. And and his contributions to the songs are astonishing to me, because it's just another voice. It's like I said, I do my best to make sure that all the instruments are talking to each other. Like one part of the song the bass will take over, and then the drums will do a section, and the guitar will do a section. You really feel like they're trading off. And then when suddenly one of Chuck's solos comes in, it's just all eyes on Chuck. Really great.
Nice. And it's funny, when you were kind of describing all that before, I was thinking back in those days, and I was basically, thinking, I had this visual in my head of, you're right, because I remember thinking back, your former band and the Crumbsuckers, it was like almost like I'm holding my hands right now, left hand up, right hand up, left hand up, right hand up. It was like, it was hard to tell who was really going to come out on top between you guys. Like, it was kind of like so similar. And I remember that so well.
They really had a thing, they really had a unique voice, I thought. I mean, they obviously took, our New York hardcore thing, and they did that really well. And they were also probably the only people on the scene who, everybody in the band really, really knew how to play their instruments really well. I think that's also one of the things that set the Cro-Mags apart. Yeah. But there wasn't much of that. But the guys in the Crumbsuckers were borderline virtuosos. And then they had, Dave writing these really angst-filled, clever New York hardcore lyrics. They were just an extraordinary band. And it was a great time to be sharing the stage with bands like that. And then, of course, Carnivore came from that same era. And I thought they were equally as great. But the fact that I was able to enlist Chuck after all these years and us play together in a context that I think really shows off what we both did and shows off what could have been if we played together back then. It's a completely different chemistry than the Cro-Mags were and than the Crumbsuckers were. And I think what he's bringing to what I'm doing is going to be another special, unique thing.
And I love seeing stuff like that, like going back in the day, and great musicians like you guys banding together nowadays to make music together. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I tried to do with I wanted to do with the music was to display a singular musical voice, which was mine. I wanted to express myself. I wanted to make music, and I wanted to be clear that it was coming from me. And I felt, I have access to a lot of musicians, but the last thing I wanted to do was do one of those all-star bands that always feels like a project that doesn't last because people don't get along, and you throw a bunch of alpha dogs together, and the next thing you know, you just have a dog fight. So the idea of bringing someone with the stature of Chuck didn't appeal to me. I guess maybe that's why I didn't think of it. But suddenly it just occurred to me, and it's not like I'm going to reach out to 20 different people like that and do it. Yeah, I think Chuck is the one guy. But oddly enough, one of the other tracks that he played on is called Fear View Mirror, and the drummer is Roy Mayorga from Stone Sour. Oh. And it wasn't until the song was mixed that I listened to it back. I was like, oh shit, that's me, Chuck, and Roy.
That's wild.
Because, I recorded all the parts individually. I went to Roy's house and I recorded the drums and the guitar. And then those tracks just sat around in the hard drive for like 5 years. Because what I would do is if I write a song and I just want to get it down as best as possible, but I didn't really know that the Aggros was going to be my, the vehicle for my music. I was still kind of looking to do a proper band. So I felt like all these tracks would just be a collection of songs I would present to a band at some point, but that band never manifested. So I had this track that Roy played on, and I had these other tracks, like the first two, City Kids, and that has a different drummer on it, and Chaos Magic has a different drummer on it. It was just people I had access to at the time. So yeah, there I am mixing the song, listening to it come through the speakers. I'm like, yeah, man, this fucking sounds incredible. Oh, well, no wonder. It's like some world-class players on there, and I don't think Roy hasn't even heard it since the day we recorded it.
Wow.
I have to send him. I'll have to send him a track and try to enlist him to be in the video when he's not busy, because he's right now I think he's on tour with Ministries.
Yeah, and it's funny. I have, I do all the radio coverage, as you know, for all these major festivals and stuff, and do all these interviews, and I never really fanboy out, and a lot of people have been my friends throughout the years, but you bring up Roy, and it reminded me of there was only one time I did fanboy out, and it was related to him, but not about him. So Stone Sour was playing this festival, Fort Rock, and I was interviewing Roy, and then when I was done interviewing him, I went down off the bus, and I was sitting on the curb smoking a cigarette, and this dude comes over and sits down on the curb next to me and just starts talking to me, and I knew who it was, but I acted like I didn't, because you're back there, you're not going to fanboy out, but inside, I've never actually vocalized this on the air, but inside I was totally fanboying out because it was Corey Taylor, and I'm a total, I love Stone Sour, but I'm a big Slipknot fan. So I was like...
As am I. About 20 minutes before this phone call, I purchased my tickets to see Slipknot on Friday at the Barclays Center.
Nice. Okay, so ready for this? I brought my son, who is now 38, into his first mosh pit ever. It was Tattoo the Earth tour at Giant Stadium, and Slipknot was opening for Metallica, and I brought him into a Slipknot pit as his first pit ever.
Excellent parenting.
Of course. And and now as a grandparent, I've taken 3 of my grandkids into pits. One of them, his first pit was August Burns Red, also another brutal pit to go into for your first time, and it's like, I love passing down the torch. And the beautiful thing is, I'm a grandfather, but I can still go in the pit with them.
Damn straight.
No doubt. And so, speaking of ministry, too, we are the official radio station for, the festival kind of my dreams, or at least lineup of my dreams that I'm going to next month, Hellfest. Can you believe that freaking lineup? Have you seen that lineup for that festival this year?
I have. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, my God. It's like, I don't even think there's one band on there I don't want to go see. And I love that it's got bands that I wanted to see when I was a teenager that I couldn't see because I was a long hair metalhead.
Right.
Back in the day.
Yeah, I was looking. Where is that located?
It's in Clisson, France.
All right. So wait. What are you doing for the festival?
Well, we are the official radio station. We're promoting it, but I'm actually doing press for it, so I have media credentials.
Oh, yeah, I always forget that the world is so connected now.
Yeah, totally. Right? It's a trip. Could you imagine back 20, 30 years ago, you were going to Europe to do press coverage for a festival as a radio station? You wouldn't do it. It'd be stupid. Nowadays.
Yeah, to me. Yeah, that's cool that you're going to that. We were thinking, me and my wife were thinking about flying over there for that. But,
if you go, we got to hook up. What I took was, I might be doing download too. I'm still waiting for to find out if I got approved for that yet. But I'm basically, instead of staying near the festival, I got an Airbnb on the coast, which is about an hour from the festival because it's 2 weekends long. So in between weekends, it's like a known surf and sailing place. So in between pits, I'm going to be surfing and sailing in France. It's going to be an epic June.
That sounds epic.
Yeah.
I did that one year at Coachella, where my wife and I showed up to Coachella about 9 days early, got a house and just stayed there in the, Palm Springs, and
right.
then went to the festival at the end of the week.
Nice.
Good plan.
And speaking of boards too, I was also looking on your Facebook, and I definitely need an Aggros board, by the way. Just saying.
I think we can make that. I think we can make that happen.
Oh man, it's pretty.
Yeah, I was
badass.
really happy with that, because I was a skater all my life. I rode on skateboard teams. I rode for GNS and Wayne Brown, like companies that probably don't even exist anymore. But always a skater all my life. I still skate now. Obviously, in the City Kids video, I featured skateboarding. So having my own skateboard was a cool thing. But not only that, but having 3 different designs by one of the designs was done by, my high school pal, Sean Taggart, who, he started out basically doing flyers for my previous band, Cro-Mags, and became known for that. And because of that, he ended up doing album covers for Carnivore and for Agnostic Front and for Prong and even the Jerky Boys. And now he's, an established, very well-known artist. And I enlisted him to do an Aggros logo, and he did that. And that's one of the skateboard designs, which I love. And then another artist, friend of mine from London named Andrew Sawyers, did the drawing of me from the Chaos Magic music video. And then we just did a straight logo skateboard. And if anybody's interested in those, they are awesome. And you can check them out at www.aggros.nyc. That's our website, and that's where the store is.
Nice. Yeah, my skateboard is in my vehicle at all times. In fact, I'm going to a festival. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm all packed. And this morning I looked over. I'm like, oh, don't forget to put the board in my vehicle. So
exactly.
Check this out. You keep saying names that are bringing up stuff. This is why I love doing my interviews like this. So that festival that I'm going to tomorrow, guess who's playing there that you just mentioned? Agnostic Front.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What festival is that?
Welcome to Rockville. Welcome to Rockville. It's in Daytona. And it kind of blows my mind. It blew my mind when I saw them in the lineup, because they're one of those bands I was talking about that, when I was a teenager, I never got to see, but I loved them. And so I think I'm now finally, a million years later, getting to see them. And there's not many bands I could say I haven't seen in my life yet.
That's great. Vinny and Roger from Agnostic Front were, again, pals of mine. When I was a teenager, we were all running around on the streets and hanging out in parks and going to concerts together. And back then, going to, the hardcore scene, wasn't like something you did once a month when there was a concert. We all hung out together every day, all day long. And if there was a concert, we all just went from wherever we were to the show. And if it was Roger and Vinny playing, we all went and saw Agnostic Front. If it was me playing, we all went to go see Cro-Mags. If it was Jimmy Gestapo who was sitting next to us, we'd all go see Murphy's Law. And that's just the way the scene was now. And it's just wonderful to see that Agnostic Front has had the perseverance and had all the success that they've had.
Some of the bands that now are still around, sometimes it does blow my mind, because some of them you think they're gone, but they've really just been in Europe all this time, because that's where it's still popular and everything. And it's it kind of blows my mind. Even the fact of, so the Exploited will be playing at Hellfest. And I interviewed Waddy a few years ago. I think it was at Punk Rock Bowling. You're going to love this. I got him all riled up before he got on stage. Like, my interview was right before he got on stage, and I started riling him up about pop punk. And,
oh, no.
Oh, yeah. And so he got on stage, and he's like, "Your fucking pop punk is not fucking punk, and what the fuck is all you people with your pop punk. And he was like so riled up. It was so funny.
Well, that's good just from what you just said. Now I know I can curse on your show.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead. Oh, man.
I guess you can't discuss Waddy without saying fuck.
Yeah, you can't. Can I really do a Waddy expression without that? And then, okay, so you're going to love this. So then a few months later, I was at Aftershock in Sacramento. And who walks into the media area but Jello Biafra? And
incredible.
We're sitting there talking for like an hour about politics. You know how he is.
Yeah.
And I got him riled up too. You know how I got him riled up? I just started talking about how I had just interviewed Waddy like the month before. And, you know, him and Waddy are not on the same page. So he just started going off. It was funny.
Different worlds. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Dead Kennedys. I saw them many times when the first album was out. I love them. And then, you know, their obvious split and feud and all that stuff is a shame. But
totally.
At least they left us with that album, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables.
Oh my God, one of the best albums
album.
ever. One of the best albums.
And we can thank them for System of a Down, because if it wasn't for that album, I don't think there would ever be a System of a Down.
And see, I didn't know that, and I love System. I didn't know that.
Oh,
that's cool.
Listen to them and imagine them ever coming up with that sound if they had never heard the Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to have to do that now, because that's a trip. I never thought of it that way, but now I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have, on the way home today, I'm going to just crank it up and imagine I'm listening to System and see what happens. So that's cool. So tell everybody what else you got going on. Give them obviously all your socials, website, how they can get the new music, and you know, anything, merch, anything else, you know, that you want to connect them with.
Well, first and foremost, you know, to introduce yourself to the Aggros, you should go to youtube.com/theaggros, AGGROS. And there are 2 music videos there of my first 2 releases. And the only other places you can get the music is from my website. I don't do any streaming or anything like that. It's aggros.nyc. And I'm finishing up these mixes of these next 3 songs, and I'm kind of playing the long game at the moment. And I'll probably put out the record around 9 months from now, and then I will follow that up subsequently with touring. And so this is kind of just a warm up to the Aggros, but definitely check out the videos. I think it'll make an impression on you. I did my best to paint pictures with the videos of the New York of my life. It's definitely a slice of life, a piece of my memories of New York. It's like taking a visit to New York in 1970, and with a soundtrack that is equally as brutal. And and you know, the normal socials are I'm on Instagram at Parris Mayhew, ParrisMayhew, and at _Aggros, AGGROS.
I can't wait to see you live, and I have to just say that I am loving the new music. It brings me back, too, because, like, nowadays everybody's into this track mentality, and you listen for, like, 30 seconds, and, like, if you did that with bands like Pink Floyd, you wouldn't even know the songs. Or I was laughing the other day because I was thinking of songs like, back in the day, like you take Battery by Metallica. If you only listen to 10 seconds, you wouldn't even know what came next. And that's what I find in your music, because it's like you're listening to the whole thing, and it's like it's like taking a journey, and that's what I miss. Way back in the day, we took a journey when we listened to music. You could escape everything and just go on this journey and just get super hyper focused into the music. And that's what your music is doing for me now. And it's like the changes and the ebbs and flows is what, because that's true musicianship, in my opinion.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I couldn't have stated it better myself. The fact that you assembled that sentence is very gratifying, because that's certainly what I was trying to do. And I think that was the reason why I put out these songs one at a time, because I didn't want someone to put something on and then be like, okay, let's see what the next one is. Okay, let's see what the next one is. Okay, let's see what the next one is. I gave them something really to chew on, and just one thing. And if it was something that rang people's bells, which that first song, all the feedback was, extremely gratifying. And then when I did the second song, I felt like I had more license to go on another one of those journeys. But just gives people one thing at a time. I mean, and I did give them a 9-minute song, which is really 3 songs put together. So again, we avoid that whole thing of catering to today's attention span.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to retrain people to appreciate my music separate from the way they think of other bands.
It's funny. We're talking about some of the old school punk bands. They were, I think about it now, based on what you just said, they were probably in the wrong time, because you had these, even SOD. You had the 2-second songs and the 30-second songs, and they would have been very appropriate today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to Rush and Yes, and bands like that, where like an entire section of the song will feel like you've totally come out of the album and you're in a different place, and then all of a sudden it'll come back to what you think it should be, and then they'll take you someplace where you never expected. I mean, that's what music should be anyway. It shouldn't be just like here. I mean, certainly to a certain extent, there's music where people just like, oh, I just need this for right now, and then they can get that from popular music. But I don't make that kind of music. I make the kind of music that is kind of fetishistic. It definitely takes a certain kind of person who likes it, a certain kind of person who appreciates it, and I'd rather cater to those people who will embrace it for a lifetime than people that will be like, this is my favorite song for 5 days.
Right. Imagine only listening to part of 2112.
Makes no sense.
No, not at all. And then you were mentioning, yes, I remember stealing. I always used to steal my older brother's albums, and Yes, Fragile was one of them. And you can't listen to that without listening to the whole album. You just can't.
Absolutely.
And imagine turning Roundabout off in 10 seconds. I couldn't imagine that. So it is wild, and maybe we'll get back to that, because I'm interviewing a lot of bands that are bringing back musicianship instead of this algebraic equation, I call it, that bands have today. Even in the really hardcore bands are not like hardcore bands back then. They're plugging in a formula, whereas back then it was experimentation. Now it's oh, here's this formula, let's just plug it in.
Yeah, I mean, I hope and again, releasing these songs one at a time has allowed me to really make the music evolve over the time in between the songs, because the way these 3 songs have just come out, I don't think I would have done it this way when I released Chaos Magic. And I think there's a lot more to chew on with these, and a lot more, you were talking about musicianship. I have there's lots of really great piano parts on the next 3 songs. And I'm playing guitar solos better than I ever did in my life. And they're not about, flash. They're song appropriate. They're melody appropriate. They're just, attributes, they're dressing, to make the songs move and travel as part of that journey we talked about. And I have a feeling that anybody who appreciated the first 2 songs is going to get a big kick out of the next 3, because they're just more than the other ones were. And I also remixed Chaos Magic.
Nice.
The first song I released, I remixed it, so it has a really different feeling. It sounds a lot fatter, and Chuck plays on it, so it's got this real signature Chuck Lenahan melody on it. So that'll be fresh for anybody who knows Chaos Magic, and it'll be a surprise. And for those who hadn't heard it in the beginning, I think it'll make it mesh more with the other 5 songs.
Absolutely. Everybody's got to check it out. It's badass. I love it. It's great music. And yes, musicianship. And it's funny, too, because you keep saying stuff and it just flashes stuff to me. You use the word flash. And when I was talking to Dan yesterday, we were talking about, because I had just interviewed Udo recently, and I was like telling Dan the story about how I first heard Fast as a Shark, because what happened was me and my bro, we were going to Ozzy's show on New Year's Eve in L.A., and it was one of those, I told my dad I was sleeping at his house. He told his parents he was sleeping at mine, and we went to Ozzy with Randy Rhoads. And we get home, and we had, all our Ozzy gear on. My next-door neighbor comes out, and we're, like, down, in my backyard down by a lake where my dad couldn't see or whatever. And the wife comes out, she's like, "Oh, did you boys just go to Ozzy last night?" And I'm like, yeah. Like, this is my next door neighbor. I'm thinking she's going to rat us out. And she goes, "Stay right there." And I'm like, oh, no. And her husband comes out. He invites us up to the house. Turns out he was Ozzy's promoter, unbeknownst to me. And we're in his studio, and it's like wall-to-wall cassettes. And he pulls out this cassette. He hands it to me. He says, "This band is not in the U.S. yet. They'll be here in about 6 months, and they're going to blow up. Check it out." And it was the demo for Accept and for Restless and Wild, but literally the first thing I heard was Fast as a Shark. And Dan goes to me, which I didn't know, he goes, "That song is the first thrash metal song ever." And I'm a total thrash metalhead. And he goes, because he was the only one at that time doing the up and down on the picking. And he's like, we were just like, oh my God, how's he doing it that fast? Blah, blah, blah. We got to figure out how to do that. Because, he was saying when you learned guitar back then, which was true, you were taught only to downstroke, not to upstroke. And so it was really a trip because, that was like an epic moment, and that song's a perfect example too. Could you imagine if you only listened to 5 seconds of the song, you would have no idea what comes next, type of thing. And what
you just described of Fast as a Shark was exactly my experience. When I heard that, I literally sat with my guitar for weeks trying to figure out how to make a song like that.
Right.
And I ended up just playing that riff over and over. I couldn't sort out a way to make it into something else. And then I got together with the drummer of the Cro-Mags, and he, got 2 bass pedals, and we just went digga, 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 for hours and hours and hours trying to make it work. And we were finally able to get that, like the proper double bass with the guitar going, but still no melody. So it was just kind of in my pocket as like a tool. And then somewhere down the line, I wrote, this part in this song called Crush the Demoniac on the second Cro-Mags album. And I'm playing this like, and then all of a sudden I just stuck that in between, and I had managed to do my own Fast as a Shark.
Nice.
And I have to thank them for that. So as you were talking about it, I was like, I know exactly what he's talking about.
I know. It's a trip, right? So now I'm going to tell you something that probably I shouldn't say on my own show because I'm probably going to get blasted for it. So when you're talking about The Flash, he was saying, Dan also said to me, he's like, and that really, everybody thought like Van Halen was the thing, like Eddie Van Halen stuff, until this came out. And it kind of just blew that away. And I said to Dan, I'm like, I'm going to tell you something that's not very popular, but I never really thought Eddie was that great of a guitarist as they made him out to be. Not that he was a bad guitarist, but I'm like, because he just did a bunch of hammer-ons. It was just all a bunch of Flash, and that's exactly what I said to him. So when you said that, I was like, wow, that was a trip.
Yeah, well, I mean, Eddie Van Halen is a phenomenon.
Yeah, totally.
He is an extraordinary, singular talent, and nobody was ever like him. Nobody ever came close. But music did change, and so did Van Halen. So
yeah, totally.
It's an odd thing, when the whole thing happened with David Lee Roth leaving, and which was around that same era when metal was changing, and he became an adult contemporary artist, and the rest of us got heavier and harder.
That's right. That's right. And here we are today. Everybody needs to check out Aggros. Shit is badass. And make sure you follow it. Check out the music. Get the merch. Do whatever. Thank you, Parris, for making us such great music for so many years. And thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for sharing your audience with me.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.